Welcome to episode 76 of the Kids with Big Emotions podcast, formerly known as Calm Nights, Strong Days. I am your host, Andy Clark. Today, we are going to dive into what I really wish that I knew when my son was in school and what I needed to know in order to be able to navigate things. With him, it had gotten to the point where I was getting so many calls a week to come and get him that I started pulling him out to non-consecutive days a week. I'd found out that they could not fail him if it was non-consecutive days every single week that he missed. So I started pulling him out 2 days a week, and he was still struggling. I was still getting calls sometimes on Fridays to come and get him. The meltdowns quickly, like just hitting, yelling, all that stuff that was going on. And the anxiety that he had going to school was horrible. He was getting so sad, so depressed. I was truthfully worried he was going to harm himself. But it was crazy. So we had some meetings. I had to initiate them. Like, as crazy as that sounds, my son was out 2 days a week. I'm pulling him out of school, and I'm the one that still had to initiate a meeting. The school really wanted to work with him, but when we got to the meeting, the only thing that they would address is that he gets into the red, which they would call it the red, which is where heightened stress, where he would yell or scream or hit. And they wanted to deal with him with strategies to help him while he was in the red. And some of the stuff I was saying is, well, he's really bored. He doesn't understand why you're still doing the work in the class that you're doing. And they're like, well, he didn't get into gifted. So they wouldn't even address it. They wouldn't even address that boredom was a bit of an issue, that there was anything else going on. They only wanted to deal with him when he was in the red. I remember going to these meetings. I didn't know what an IEP was. I didn't know what I know in the States, they say like 504. I didn't know what any of these things were. I felt so lost. The words they were using with me, the strategies, all of these things. And I felt like I was dropping all of these balls. I'm like, I know there's ways to navigate this. I know there's ways to do this in order to get him the help and support that he needs. But I didn't know how to do it. And I knew that there were things that I needed to be saying to change the way that they responded to me. And we didn't get anywhere. That I eventually pulled him out. Like, this was near the end of a school year. From things I was finding out, we were going to have to go through hoops and loops, that nothing was going to happen at the start of his next school year, that I pulled him out. And your situation may be different, the way that your child is reacting in class, the struggles that you're having, the issues that the teacher is saying that they're having in class, the issues that your child is having. My hope with this episode is that you're going to get some answers of things that you need to hear in order to be able to help give you the support that your child needs. So what we're diving in today are the things that I wish I knew then, when I was going in, looking back, all that I've learned through then, in order to hopefully help some of you that are going through this, where you're trying to get support from the school. So that starts with my first point, where I was asking for something I realize now that the school was not equipped to provide. Now, there are some amazing schools out there. They have supports, they listen. It's phenomenal. And I will tell you that the school that my son was at was horrible. The principal, everybody was waiting for them to retire. You could see, just because of how they even were, how controlling they were and unsupportive they were with the teachers. You could see the teachers weren't supported, and it was affecting them. It was affecting parents. So that school alone already had struggles. But I am in Facebook groups. They're called 2E, so twice exceptional, so kids that are gifted and also has struggles to do other diagnoses, ADHD, different dysgraphia, dyslexia, different ways of thinking, autism. Those are 2E kids. And so if you go into any gifted Facebook groups, you search gifted, you search neurodiverse, a lot of these you will hear that parents are having the same struggles where their child is having struggles in school, they're getting calls. And then when they go to these meetings, the solutions are just, they're not able to give the solutions that they want. Now, here's the thing, and this is going to be an answer you may not want to hear. It's one that I was very upset about at the beginning, but now I'm starting to understand it a lot more as I dive into the research. The research into neurodiverse kids and neurodiverse gifted kids, it may seem when you're diving into it, when you're in these Facebook groups and you're like, oh my God, there's so many kids like mine. And you're finding this out. The problem is that the school, because they have not dove into the research like us, they are not in these groups with all of these other kids, and they're not aware because the symptom's not the right word, because of the way it presents in all these kids is so different, like the ADHD, the ODD, the autism, all of the different learning struggles, executive functioning struggles that all of these executive functioning kids, all of these neurodiverse kids have, is so different from one another that schools are not actually aware that a lot of these symptoms are similar and they fall under the same category. The research is not out there. And quite often, a lot of teachers believe what I thought gifted meant when my first son went to gifted, was I thought that gifted meant a child that loves to learn, a child that if somebody's teaching gifted, that they're going to go like do all of this STEM, all this science, technology, maths, all of these things with these kids, and these kids are all going to love to learn. They're all engaged. They love to learn, and they can go on a much faster pace, and they're going to be happy and well-behaved. And that's the thing, is what we learned is the higher that a kid actually goes on the above average, the more standard deviations above average they go, the more executive functioning struggles they have, the more other diagnoses and struggles, the more their brain works different. And so there may be absolutely brilliant in certain things, but they may be struggling with other, they're ahead in certain things, but they may be struggling with other like ways that they think, or some executive functioning, perception, attention, all the things that I talk about in my podcast, right? All these behavior issues that these kids have. And when the school sees behavior issues, they just think issues, struggle, behavior, and they don't relate any of that to giftedness, to the way a brain may be working different, because they are such in a box, right? So they don't understand executive functioning skills, which is a big part of what these kids need. Before, all kids, not even neurodiverse kids, but all kids need a lot of help and work with the executive functioning side before they're actually able to take on the academic side. So that is a big piece that is missing in our school system. The executive functioning course I'm taking is by Tara Sumpner. She's an SLP. She does a lot of evaluations for schools. And she is phenomenal. Her hope, that she doesn't actually believe is going to happen in her lifetime, but she is working really hard to make it happen, is to get executive functioning, understanding, teaching, and training for teachers out there, for all schools out there. Now, she does get contracted out often to go to schools to speak. And there is a school in New York where a couple of SLPs have taken Tara's course, and then they bring Tara into the school now to teach once in a while. And last year, a kindergarten teacher brought on, she made her whole classroom executive functioning skills based. And other teachers started asking, what are you doing? How are your kids like managing one another in the hall? How are they like following things so much better than the older grade kids. And then now so that a grade 3 teacher is taking this on, and it just keeps snowballing, that it's possible next year 2 will take it on, and then another 4 will take it on, like the compound effect. That I have a feeling that their school, by the sounds of it, from everything I've learned about this school and trainings that Tara's brought them in to do trainings in our course for what to do in schools and teaching this, that school will be bringing on an executive functioning based training sooner. Like they'll have most teachers on board with that sooner than later. But it's a work in progress. This isn't how our school system is designed, right? So my neighbor as well, he's a grade 3 teacher now. He's taught kindergarten. I was speaking with him a few weeks ago and telling him about this course. And he told me that he is actually, his goal is every year to take another course that is beyond what they were taught in teachers college. Teacher college really focused on, you know, teaching the academics how to train, which Tara says as well with SLP. She's like, with speech and language pathologists, how they're trained is very like clinical, to be working on, if this is what you see, you know, wrong in somebody's speech or language, this is how you fix it. When there's often a big base of executive functioning struggles that are actually causing those deficits in their speech and language, which goes back to how teachers are taught too. They're taught, if a child's struggling in reading, this is what you do. If a child's struggling in, you know, math, this is what you do. And it's a lot of, if they're struggling in, there's not a lot of if the kid's ahead. So they're missing that piece as well. So it really is up to the teacher to start learning a lot of these skills. So when we're asking for something of these teachers, I know in our school board as well, for our gifted program, they do not teach above grade level. So they're teaching more laterally, but some of these kids are even laterally just so ahead in certain subjects and struggling in others. So it's really important to at first just stop and take that step back and go, does my school have the resources, first off, to understand what's going on in my child? The fact that you're listening to this podcast already knows that you're starting to get a bigger picture understanding of the stress systems of these kids, how sensitive their stress systems are relative to others, how more that they react to stressors, how sensitive they are to their environment relative to others, and how that can affect them in school. I mean, I talked about this in the last podcast episode. And you're seeing as well that there could be traumas when somebody is gifted or somebody's brain does work differently than the way that society thinks it should. That can create a whole bunch of traumas as well. And then we get all these executive functioning struggles that these kids have. And teachers, like, these are things that I have studied, like inside it. That's what I do all the time, is studying these things. And a teacher is working so hard on getting their class set up, managing like 30 kids in a classroom, that they don't have the time and the bandwidth to be diving as deep as I am into these completely other subjects that, yes, their students need, but they're not taught as a base in teachers college. So I truly believe that this is changing. I truly believe that this is, it's an evolution. And I don't have that anger towards them anymore, as long as they are open-minded to learn, which is where I'm going to give you some strategies as well on how to bring things into, bring things up with the teachers, bring things up with the school, bring things up with them in meetings in order to get more help for your child that's more productive. But we do need to first understand that your school, what you're asking for your child, the help, they may not even understand. You may now, because you listen to this podcast, you may be way more ahead in understanding what's going on with your child and what's like how their brain works than they are. So we need to first think, okay, they're not at this pace. We need to catch them up to that in a way that's not going to have them get defensive, have them feeling bad, have them feeling like we're putting them down in any sort of way. It has to come from a kindness, caring, compassionate way where we are offering support to them instead of telling them that they're doing something wrong. If that makes sense, in order for them to be on board with you more. And so my next point is that teachers, oh, I already said this too. Teachers are taught the academic side. I mixed this in with number one, not the executive functioning, stress, or mental health side. And the thing though is now we're expecting that they should just know this. So the way that I like to think of this too is if we think of our medical doctor, like our medical system is built on reactive triage medicine. It is so invaluable what they can do, like for heart issues, for diseases, for, break strains, like emergency medical struggles, phenomenal. And that is what they're there for. The thing is that we expect them to be able to be also, on top of being triage reactive medicine, we're expecting that they should also understand preventative medicine and how to really work on like the health preventative side, which is not where their training is. And that's kind of where we're coming at with these teachers, is we're expecting for them to, okay, yes, you're learning that academic side that you're being taught to teach the academics. And now we're coming at them and saying, oh, you should also know executive functioning. You should also know all about stress management. You should also know the mental health side. And those are like three different, like these have taken me years and years of diving deep into courses and studies and getting like the amount of education I have on these things is unbelievable, that there's no way I could have done this while I held down a full-time job. This is my full-time job, has been learning these things. So teachers are definitely trying their best. And 30 kids in the class, often they don't have any support. There are some schools that have support, but not for every child. And when every child is presenting differently, then like for that teacher to understand all of the individual differences of each child is really, really, really hard. And sometimes in a classroom too, well, not sometimes, pretty much all the time, in a classroom of 30 kids, there are going to be some kids that need one thing while other kids need the opposite. Some kids need movement, need activity, need the stimulation. Some kids need quiet, calm, less stimulation, right? So it's fascinating that, like, how can a teacher necessarily be able to give every student what they need all throughout the day? Like, it's really, really hard. And so I guess with all of this, well, not I guess, I do know with all of this, I do want us to already right now to start to put ourselves in the teacher's shoes when we're thinking about what we are asking for with help. And my third point about this as well is just, this is getting us to think about it before we dive into these solutions. I'll give you some really good solutions for you in school. The third one here is that school may not be the best learning environment for every child. So an understanding about what I'm saying is not everyone can homeschool, even if you know that your child, that school isn't the best learning environment. And I will go into strategies for that. So I want to put that out there. But first off, let's just take a look at if school is for every child. They all learn different. Some need really, really quiet, right? Some thrive in that environment where they're told what to do, when to do, where it's just a very different environment. There's a book I love called Why Are You Sending Your Kids to School? And that book, when I read it, I'm like, oh, this is why my one child really struggles with school. And this is why my one child really thrives in school. And my oldest has left and come home to homeschool, but honestly, he'd be good in school. He'd be fine. His struggle, truthfully, was that he'd been in the same gifted class since grade 4. He's going into grade 8. He left in grade 7. He's been with the same kids since grade 4. He has an oppositional defiance, a child with ODD, oppositional defiance, ADHD, autism. His class was so disruptive, so disruptive. Honestly, his teachers have been amazing. I do not know how they've even gotten done what they have gotten done. And Their knowledge to be able to help some of the kids has been amazing, but they don't have the tools to help all of these kids with all of their struggles that are in gifted. And it was getting so disruptive for him that he was like, Mom, I just need a break. And he wanted to go above grade level, which the teachers have nothing to do with, right? So that is, if school allowed my son to go at his level in the subjects, oh my gosh. Which it's possible I could have fought for that now, which I didn't know about, that I could have done that. These are things I had no idea were even a possibility. I didn't even know how to do that, which that would be where, if you want to know about options and ideas for that, that's where I'd go to my episode a couple of weeks ago about homeschooling. That gives so many resources that even if you have a child in school, of what they can do, bring some of those resources into their classroom so that they can go and learn above grade level while the teacher is teaching the other kids grade level stuff, so they can still stay with their peers, if that is really what is important to that child. So it may not be the learning environment for everybody. Like when a child is really like, so I do think of my youngest that I did pull out. Had you asked me a year ago, well, even 6 months ago, I was saying, I'm not sure if my child will ever be able to go to school, including college, university, because of how different his brain is, because he couldn't handle more than one, like, not a question, more than one direction at a time. He couldn't do sentence structure and stuff. And I'm saying these all in the past tense. And I didn't know how to help him and fix him with those things then. His inhibition was really bad, and his perfectionism and his expectations of himself were so bad, were so high in what he expected, that there's so many things that he would have struggled with, even like at a college level at this point, even though academically he's smart, showing his work, all of this. And I didn't know how to help him with that until, oh my gosh, the stuff I've been doing in this EF course, the changes I'm seeing in my son are crazy. This past week, I found in his Google Drive a couple weeks ago, a 2-chapter story with really good grammar. The grammar's better than mine. And we haven't worked on any grammar or writing, but I thought he's never going to be able to write anything that they ask him to do in any high school or college level class. And he is, but only through working on executive functioning skills. So me pulling him out, I'm learning and working on his executive functioning skills. He would not have been able to make the headway that he's made in school because of how much it would have been overwhelming. Everything going on in the school would have just been way too much for him to have also been able to focus on the executive functioning skills that, as I've been going through this course and implementing with him and helping his friends, it's been so cool watching the change in them over the summer too. That I am now thinking that, oh, wow, the way that he's going with this executive functioning and all of that, I'm thinking that even he might even be able to make the choice to go to high school if he chose to. That being said, both of my kids are already grades ahead in classes, that if he was to go to high school, he might get really bored, but he might by then really actually like the social aspect of it. So this is where environments, school may not be the best learning environment for a child ever. It may not be the best learning environment for a child while they have a deficit in executive functioning skills and are really struggling in order for them to learn those so that they can thrive in that environment. And some kids may need that environment all of the time for the executive, for the social. There was a boy that we carpooled to school with my son, and oh my gosh, this kid had FOMO for activities. Every single lunch, every sport, every evening, he was like involved in things that his mom was like, we can't do this. Like, well, where we can't fit all of this stuff in. That child homeschooling probably would have been really tough for him. Even though he had some executive functioning things that we could be working with. So it's super fascinating in just seeing maybe the school isn't necessarily a learning environment for that child right now, forever, or it may be the great environment for them. So what do we do? First off, what the heck do we do if we have to send our kids to school? What if you are a single parent and you have to be out of the house working? What if you both work? Or what if you just know that personality wise, that having your kids home during the day is just really not the best environment mentally for you and them, right? We all have different personalities. We all have different things. What do we do then? So let's dive into some of these strategies. So regardless, if your child is in school, if your child is homeschooling, however that works, keep diving into executive functioning, which I'm going to be talking about way more. I'm opening up my membership group very soon, which is where I'm going to be teaching, and I can sit and answer all kinds of questions based on your child and help you with that. My hope with this membership group is that I can start helping the parents start learning these skills to be then teaching your kids at home, not teaching. Be parenting in a way that is going to help them with their executive functioning skills that they're struggling with. So that's what my hope is with this membership group. And then I do have one-on-one that I do work with kids, where I can work with middle school and high schools by themselves online, or I can work one-on-one with parents and or the kids of younger elementary. So just keep working on this. I know when I'm in sessions with people, we're mixing all kinds of things. Okay, right now, do we need to work on the stress systems and teach them more about managing the stress systems to get them stronger? Do we need to be working on their executive functioning struggles? Do we need to be adding some trauma work in here now? What do we need to be doing? And it's like water, it flows with me when I'm working with people to be able to work in those different directions. So regardless of how much support that your school is giving you, you can still take more ownership of this and understanding of this, because you are the parent, you know the child, and you can be doing so much of this at home, regardless if they're in school or not. Now, the second thing that I would suggest possibly is a private psychoed eval. So this was where my son did, here it is in grade 3, where I live in Toronto, Canada. In grade 3 is when they're phasing it out now because of budget cuts, but it's when they did the tested for gifted testing. And my son got 99.9% out of all the kids in Canada in his age with all of the academic stuff. But when they did the second set of testing, the spatial, he got 96% instead of 98, and 98 is the cutoff for getting into gifted. And now, though, that I go back and I see the executive functioning struggles he has, and I see the dysgraphia is an executive functioning struggle, of which he just did a 2-chapter story, which shows that his dysgraphia is was actually executive functioning and not a learning disability of written expression. So with all of that, we then went, I was like, no way, like this kid's actually smarter than his brother that's in gifted. Like there's no way this kid's not, but how do I help him? So that's where we did a private psychoed eval. And they're expensive, but our insurance covered it. We have really good mental health insurance. So it's a psychologist who does it. So it fell under therapy. So ours covered the entire thing. Yours may not. What I will say, though, this is a caveat: if your child did do the school testing, the school does not accept if the psychologist does some of the same testing that the school did, they won't accept that if it's done in less than a year. So there's the WISC, and I don't remember what the other one is. There's the WISC and another one that our school system does. So if the psychologist does the WISC and something else, then they won't accept it. But when you're doing a private psychoed eval, they should do so much more. And that's where my son, she found that he had dysgraphia, which was this learning disability of written expression. And that automatically meant that the school had to give us a meeting and had to give us an IEP. So getting a private psychoed eval is going to really help you find out your kid's giftedness. It'll help you find out the levels. Now, who does this is really important. I didn't know enough when we booked the person that we booked with, and I wouldn't book with them again. They were helpful, but there's different things that it's really important to find out if they just take all the raw data, if they just take the scores, or do they take the raw data? Because if your child is very much ahead in something, but very much lacking in something else. So like my son was like 5% for writing, 5%, right? 50% is average. And he's 98, 97, 99 in most other things, right? That shows you that there's either where their struggles are and where they're probably struggling in school. Now, the odds are that somebody who's doing a psychoed eval is not going to know executive functioning. So you can also go to an SLP if they are trained in executive functioning as well to do the evaluation. Tara Sumpter, PERASUMPTER, or Seeds of Learning. Seeds of Learning is her business. It's in Ohio, I think. She does online assessments. It's they're expensive. I think it's like $1,200, $1,500 for her assessment, but they will go into all of the executive functioning. I think it was $1,200 if I went online, and it's cheaper if you go in person. It's harder for them to do online. That I was actually considering. I'm in Canada, and I've actually was considering before I started taking her course and learning from her, I considered actually flying my child to Ohio, and getting a full assessment done by her. She is amazing at working with schools. She knows how to really do these in-depth evaluations to figure out all of their executive functioning struggles. And then she knows how to write them on an IEP so that the school gets it, which is different. So like I'm saying, my son, so this is the examples. My son has got diagnosed with dysgraphia, which is a learning disability of written expression. So this means that at school, the teacher's like, he needs a device to write instead of writing by hand. And his grammar and punctuation, we need to take that into consideration. Now, Tara knows that that's what the schools need us to say, right? And if you were to go to a psychoed eval and they were able to give you like a dyslexia or a dysgraphia diagnosis or dyscalculia diagnosis, they are going to be written into an IEP, and then the teacher has to follow that IEP with those words. Now, the thing though, what Tara can do is that she knows then if that's what that says, she knows though, because she's done such an in-depth in the executive functioning piece, that she will be able to figure out though, what executive functioning pieces do we need to work on to help with that. So on the outside, she can develop a plan outside of school to be helping with that. If you have a teacher that is on board and willing to work on those things, you can give them that plan outside. But the IEP, the individual education plan, needs to be in the language and the wording that is consistent with all IEPs. And so there's going to be things on an IEP that are going to be written that you're going to like shake your head and you're going to groan. You're like, seriously, like this is what we're writing in here for my child's behavior. But it's what they need it's kind of like, legal speak, so to say. And they need to be able to have it in that, because if you word that IEP in a way that is just all executive functioning stuff, then you go to the next teacher that may not be versed in that. They're not going to know how to handle that or how to work with that. And so it's really important to make sure that your child is that you're checking the boxes that the school needs. And this is the frustrating part. This is why I struggle so much with systems, with like government run systems. It's kind of funny because my husband's a police officer. But I struggle with a lot of these systems because a lot of it is just checking boxes and doing things the way that the government or the system designs that it has to be done, even though logically you know that there's a better solution and a solution that's going to get you to your answer in a better way. So that is where get that IEP. If you can get a private psychoed eval, like our private psychoed eval said that my son was gifted, like off the charts gifted in certain things. And there was no question of that the school would have then had to, if I wanted to push it, get him into gifted. Hindsight, now that I see it, I know that he would never have gotten the executive functioning help that he had, and he still would have struggled in gifted. So it wouldn't have mattered. Plus, he hates going at grade level and things. He wants to go at the level that he's at and things. Understandably, kids don't like to be bored. So me pushing for him to have staying in gifted wouldn't have been the right answer for us. That being said, the gifted teachers that I do know that my son had, phenomenal, that I bet you that we could have had a meeting with them and talked about executive functioning. They would have been open to learning it had I come to them in a caring, compassionate way and saying, like, this is all that I'm learning. This is the way that he's helping them. This is what we're doing at home. If there are ways to bring that into the classroom for him, it would make your life so much easier. And he'd get better as the year went on. So the struggles with him would become less for you, right? It's all in how you word it and how can this help the teacher manage your child. So yeah, I wish that this had questions. I wish I could be back and forth with you guys to answer all your questions on that. But you really need to, as well, once you do get an IEP in place, which can take years, what I would suggest is getting into Facebook groups for IEPs 504s. There's American groups. I don't think there's any Canadian groups for it, but there's American groups. And I've been in them, and you learn so much. You learn what you can push for. You learn the wording you have to use in order to get the meetings. You learn who all you have to have at the meetings. What legal speak do you need to say in order to get the actions done that you need to get done? All of those things. So if you join Facebook groups for the IEP 504s, super helpful. That will help you transition. That will help you navigate your way through the process of getting an IEP faster. It still is going to be a slow, excruciating process, just so you are prepared and so you know. Not at every school though. My son's school, the gifted school he went to, well, it wasn't a gifted school. It was just, they only have a gifted class in some of the schools in our area. So they're bused from all the classes, schools to that school. That principal, phenomenal. I even went to him when I was having troubles with my son. And I was like, I'm not making any headway at his school. I'm having struggles. He's not even in your school, but I don't even know what else to do right now. He hopped on a call with me in 15 minutes and said, oh, because of what you just said, him being out 2 days a week, him struggling with his writing, the dysgraphia, all of these things, he's like, you should be getting this, 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 and this. And I went back to my son's school, the original son's school, and I asked them and they said no to everything. So some schools are phenomenal. Some schools will help you with all of this. Some schools, the IEP process is quick. Not all, most of them are not. And a lot of it too is because the teachers really don't understand. They don't understand how to be doing this. The teachers are so overwhelmed having so many IEPs for so many kids in their class that we do have to put ourselves in their shoes too and come at them with kindness, caring, and compassion, because they are struggling. Like, one reason I took my son out is because I didn't think a teacher needed to be able to navigate and manage all of my son's emotional outbursts in a class of 30. And I had the luxury of being able to pull him out because I work for myself. I can adjust my hours, work weekends when my husband's not working. I can work mornings and evenings. And I've adjusted my office time now to that I work 9 to 12 while my kids do their work. So I am so grateful. And I know that not everybody is in that situation where they can do it. So if you need to fight, get that IEP, but also just be kind and caring, compassionate to the teachers, because they're struggling in all of this and navigating it as well. Definitely teach your kids how to advocate for themselves. This is huge. I hear this in groups as far as kids going into like high school and college. And if a teacher is not following their IEP and they need certain accommodations. Now, I will say the more I learn about executive functioning, the more I'm like, these are executive functioning skills that we can be learning, teaching these kids and teaching them before the ages of like 23 to 25, where their brain hasn't fully formed in those areas, is where we'll be the most successful. So definitely be teaching them those executive functioning skills while also getting an IEP in place. If they don't need it, great. They can always say, I'm okay to handle this right now to the teacher, and the teacher's probably going to go, yes, okay. But having that there as backup in case certain subjects or certain teachers do not teach in the same way, and your child's executive functioning skills or their struggles start ramping up in a certain class, they always have that there as backup in their back pocket. Okay, I'm just going through my notes here. Yes, the language used. You need to really make sure that in the IEP, even though you may know it's executive functioning by now, even though you know it's something else, it needs to be in the IEP in the language and the speak that the school understands it. And then you can work individually with the teachers each year. And then I have in my notes, yeah, you just have to really accept that what you want, like that outcome, the steps and all of that stuff, what you want for those may not be exactly how it's written. You would do your best to get it that way, but really working with the teacher is really, really important. Just keep going up the ladder until you get this IEP done, like going up to the superintendent if you have to. The community is really what is going to help you. Community in these Facebook groups, these 2E Facebook groups. I have my Facebook group where there's other parents going through this as well, and they can support and help you. The link for that is in the show notes. The 504 IEP groups, all of those will be super, super, super helpful. All right. Oh, and then, okay, this was the last one. I'm like, there's something I'm forgetting. This is really important. At the start of a year, create a document for the teacher to understand your child's needs at the start of the year. So this is where you can go, hey, I'm so-and-so, my child's in your class. And I thought that I would impart on you some, amazing strategies we've learned throughout the year to make your job easier this year. Word it in a way that this is to help your job become easier. This is a way to decrease my child's outbursts or decrease their anxiety or help with their paying attention or doing these things in class. So super, super important for you to make sure that you really word it in a way of, this is how this is going to help you get through your year easier with my child. And give them certain strategies and solutions. This is why my child struggles with this. It's best if they're probably at the front of the class where they're not going to be distracted by seeing so many kids or all of these things. You can say, executive functioning. They may not know executive functioning. So it's how my child struggles with the following executive functioning skills. Perception. This is how it shows in them. Attention. This is how it shows in them. Inhibition. This is how it shows. These are the strategies we're implementing at home. If you would like me to help brainstorm with you at all on certain strategies to be able to implement them in your classroom to make it so much easier for you in your classroom, let me know. So this is so important. And you can also say, like, they have an IEP. This is what it says. This is what it actually means. This is where their real struggles are. And that will go such a long way with a teacher. Not every teacher is going to appreciate it as much, but if you really word it in a way of, I'm sending this to make your year so much easier and to help give you strategies now so you don't have to try to figure them out on what works and doesn't work. And you can say, these strategies don't work for this child. This is how they're going to react. This is what we've found to work instead, so that they're aware of it. And if they do make a mistake, they can be like, oh yeah, this is what it said in that document. That mom was so right. They know their child. Let me check those strategies again so I can implement what really works for this child. All right. Okay, that was a lot. If you need to, go back, listen to this, take notes. This is all stuff I wish I knew. I do and I don't, because it may not have pulled my child from school. I may have kept him in another year and kept trying to fight and trying to get him the help that he needed. I do know now that with my child, the way that he is, that I needed to get him away from so much stimulation for his nervous system to regulate. And then now we're working on his executive functioning, that he's going to be able to have the choice. I truly believe this, in the next couple of years, if he wants to go back to school or stay homeschooling, because he's actually going to have the tools and the ability to do it. Until then, I don't think he has or will. Yeah, it's fascinating how our child's brains think. The school system is a tough one to navigate. You can do it. You're not alone in this at all. Definitely check out this Facebook groups. They're way more knowledgeable in this than I am. That's where I've learned what I've learned, as far as how to advocate and do it. And I did not go down the route of filling in an IEP for him. My gifted child had one, because as soon as they go into gifted, they get an IEP, but his was bare. He's more average gifted. And when you're average gifted, your brain works the way that teachers want it to. He is that child that gets excited about learning and learns very easily and does what the teacher does. So his IEP was blank. So I really don't have the experience. My other child's IEP would have been so different, so different. So yeah, I hope this has helped for you. If your child is in school, I hope that this really does help you navigate the school year better. I'm truthfully not sure how much more than this I can help you, but I will. If you want to hop on a call with me, definitely hop on a call. The link is in the show notes. Join our Facebook group, ask other parents in the Facebook group. They may be able to help you as well, beyond what I've imparted on you here. All right, keep in mind, your kid is amazing. We need kids that think outside the box. We need kids that show their emotions, that are out there, and that aren't putting up with the way that things are. Our kids are really going to change the world. We need to give them the tools and the strategies in order to empower their brains to be the best that they can be, so that they can make those changes in the world. All right. Thank you for listening. Don't forget, all of our links are below in the show notes. If you would definitely please like this podcast, share it with friends. That's how this gets out to more people. That's how more people find out about this podcast. And thank you so much for listening and be here. I will see you in the next episode.